I was named, my mother told me I was named after one of my father's old girlfriends. Her name was Doris, and evidently he liked her a lot. and, and so they named me Doris. And yeah, my sister too, yeah, Evelyn, was evidently named after one of his girlfriends too. So I don't know how my mom stood for that, but that's what I was told.
Yes, my parents named me Freddie, and then when Michael, the grandson, was born, they named him Frederick. And Michael Frederick, and David told me that they had named him after me, and I said, well, my name is not really Frederick, my name is Freddie. So I said, I guess I'll have to change my name. So I did, I changed it, and it's legally Frederick instead of Freddie. Well, it was, Bellsville is very small, about a community of 400 people or so. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone is very, very friendly, and we enjoyed it there.
My parents moved around a lot when I was real young. I was born on a farm, and then my dad got a job at the sawmill. And, yeah, so we moved to Clarington, Ohio, down along the Ohio River, and my brother was born while we lived down there. Then we moved to Powhatan, Ohio, because then my dad went to work for the coal mine. So we moved to Powhatan, Ohio, and then finally we moved back to Bellsville, Ohio, and that's where I went to my whole high school years, to Bellsville High School. I had a good childhood. My parents were always very supportive and good to me, and they made sure that I was in the Bellsville band. I was a majorette in the band. And my dad always took me to band practice, and then when we had games or had something going on, he would take me, and my mom was always very helpful with my schoolwork. She was very good in math, and sometimes she would even do my math at nighttime after I'd go to bed, and she would do my algebra for me, and she'd say, "Oh, you just go to bed, and you can copy it when you get up." So, of course, I took her up on that because I didn't like algebra anyway, so yeah, I had very good and supportive parents.
Well, I guess my parents, especially my dad, he was seemed like he was always busy. He didn't. There was nine kids in our family, and 6 boys and 3 girls, and he didn't seem to spend a whole lot of time with us, so far as any games or anything like that. He made his living on the sawmill all his life. He always had a sawmill and ran a sawmill, and then he had, we boys that were there on the farm, we had to do all the farming. And my mother, she was just one of the kindest, quiet little ladies that you'd ever want to know. She never got, ever really scolded us too much, or ever got loud. She was just a quiet little lady. And
But she got after you once with the butcher knife, didn't she?
Well, yes, but that I deserved that. That was when I talked back to her. She said something to me, and I talked back to her. We were sitting at the table, and there was like a bread knife. It was a long bread knife, thin, and she picked that up by the blade. Of course, it probably wasn't very sharp, reached across the table and smacked me right on top of the head with the handle. So I guess I've always kind of remembered that. But she never really punished us. We were pretty much always on our own. You know. Yeah, I guess my second oldest brother he was always sort of an aggravating little bugger. He was bigger than me. He was 6 years older. And I'll never forget one time we had a dug water well, that they didn't really use anymore, but it was very deep. And just to be aggravating, he picked me up by the heels and dropped me down in that well head first, hanging on to my heels. He didn't let go of me. But then I started to slip. And fortunately, my other brother was there, and he kept yelling, to help, that I was slipping. And of course, the other brother thought that he was just trying to scare me, and he didn't come right away to give any help. But they finally got me back up out of the well, and I didn't go in. Otherwise, I would have gone down in there head first, and that well was probably 30 feet deep at least. So that was. But the other brothers, I never had they were always pretty kind to me. Of course, we had our fights, with that many boys in the family. You had to try to hold your own.
And how many sisters did you have?
3.
Yeah.
3 sisters. My sisters were all younger than me, so I guess by the time they got old enough that we interfaced much. I was probably, I don't know, 12, 14 years old, But there was 4 years between me and my oldest sister, and then 2 years between each one of them later. So, and my whole family, there was 2 years. Every 2 years, my mother had a new one. So we never got tired of what was laying around.
I had one sister and one brother. My sister was 2.5 years older than I, and she and I got along pretty well. We got in trouble sometimes. I know my aunt had made Evelyn and I a new sunsuit and a bonnet that we used to wear years ago. And so what did we do? We put them on, went down to the creek and sat down in the creek and played. So my mother wasn't very happy with us that we had just got these new outfits and we went sat down to the creek and was playing in it. But and my brother was 7 years younger than I, and we always got along well. He was a good guy. Yeah.
I probably did more of the things that I did with my brother that was 2 years older than me, because we were closer in age, and got into enough trouble. I'll never forget one time he did his math for school, and I thought, well, it would just be nice to sew it up. So I took his math paper after he had finished it all, put it on the sewing machine, and sewed it all up, all the way around it. But needless to say, he wasn't very happy about that. Kicked my butt in high school.
High school, yep, we were high school sweethearts.
Well, we dated just a very short time, and then Doris found this guy that she liked a little better, I guess, and
he was from over Woodsfield,
he had more to offer. It was probably that he had more to offer than I did. He had lived in the big city, and I was a country boy, and so we just, I'll never forget, it was Easter time, and I'd bought her a nice Easter egg and had her name put on it. And I took the Easter egg to her, and she said, well, I'm sorry, but I can't take that Easter egg because I'm going to go out with Bill Yoho tonight. And that was when we were sophomores until we were seniors. And then we started dating then when we were seniors, and here we are. We never parted. We stayed always together.
I guess we had grown up a little bit by then, from sophomores to seniors. And yeah, second time around, it worked. We started dating, and it was great.
Of course, I left then soon. Well, we went together for a while then after we graduated there. Well, till I went into service.
From March till November.
And I ended up going into the service and was gone for 2 years, and she waited until I came home.
It was my first job up in Canton, Ohio, and it was summertime, and it was way too hot in my little apartment I had, so we were sitting outside on the steps, and that's where he proposed to me. This was before he went it was summertime, before he went to the service in November, and he proposed to me, and I said yes, and so I waited for
2 years.
almost 2 years till he came home from the service. We wrote lots of letters, and he sent me this beautiful, beautiful china that I had. He sent it to me from Germany, and I was shocked that he would send me anything so beautiful. And it's been a lifetime keepsake, and I hope I can get it passed down to my girls. Yeah.
Dresden House.
Huh?
Dresden House, China.
Yeah. Dresden House, China, yeah. From Haus Dresden. It was from Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Took my basic in Camp Breckenridge, Kentucky, with the 101st Airborne. And I guess I assumed I'd always be with them, but then when I finished basic, I ended up, they shipped me to Germany. And I was with the anti-aircraft division. And as we just said, that I was over there for 18 months. Yeah, then I was there, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months, and had a battalion clerk, and he evidently took a liking to me, and first of all, he sent me to TINA school, I believe it was, an information education school. So I finished that and came back, and it never materialized into anything other than, I guess then I went in, then he decided he wanted me to be the do some training, so he sent me back to school again, and to a training school. And I was there for several weeks. Finished that, and shortly after I came back, the mail clerk that we had had finished his tour and was coming home, and he came to me and said, "Say, Baker, how would you like to be the battalion mail clerk?" And I said, "Nah, I don't think I won't. I just didn't think that was something I wanted to do." So I thought about it that night, and I thought, you're not too smart not to take that, because there was nothing involved, and you were totally on your own. So I went back to him the next morning, and I said, "If that mail clerk's job's open, I'll take it." And I did. So I was the mail clerk for the rest of the time I was in Germany, and that was a very, very smart move, because I had nobody bothered me, no responsibilities. I was on my own. Everybody loved me because they wanted their mail, and so it was a great job.
We got married at the First Christian Church in North Industry, Ohio, which is a little town south of Canton, Ohio. And we had just a small wedding. It was open to the church, but still, it was just an afternoon small wedding in February 19th, 1955, right? And and then on our honeymoon, we didn't have any money. We were two poor kids.
You drove up to Akron?
So we drove to Akron, Ohio, and then we stopped there. On the way, we didn't know where we were gonna stay all night, but I saw this sign, the Mayflower Hotel, and I thought, oh, that would be nice. So we did, and that was probably one of the most expensive hotels in Akron, Ohio, but it was like $35. But $35 was a lot of money back in 1955. So we stayed one night there, and then we went over to Castelia, Ohio, the next day, and to where the Blue Hole is, where it's like a bottomless pit. It's supposed to be. It's beautiful blue coloring, and so we did that, and I don't know, I don't know what all we did that day, but other than go to Castelia. But then we came home. We came back. Was going to come to our little. We had a mobile home, and we got there, and there was lights on the mobile home, and we thought, what's going on here? And here, my mom and dad and my brother and sister-in-law and brother-in-law were there decorating. Well, you might call it decorating. They took our light bulbs out, put popcorn in our bed, and just did all kinds of crazy stuff, you know. Yeah, and so we sat out across the street. We sat across the street and watched until they left, and then we went in the dark because there were no light bulbs. So that was the end of our honeymoon.
But after we'd gone to the hotel, we decided wasn't real late, but a little later, and we thought, well, we better go get something to eat. So we went down to the restaurant, and this little gal that waited on us, she was Southern. I don't know from what state she was from, but she had a real rangy accent. She says, "How long have you all been married?"
How many hours?
How many hours?
How many hours have you all been married?
It must have shown.
And I said, well, how can you tell? We just got married. Well, it's all over your faces. Because we were sitting there looking at our rings and talking, you know, about the wedding and all. And so that was kind of a highlight of our honeymoon too, I guess. We always talk about that.
Well, I had already was into the carpenter union, and I assumed that's where I was going to stay. But work was very, very, very slow, so it was hard to get any work when I came home. And Doris's dad worked at a glazed tile factory close there at the East Sparta. So he got me a job there, making glazed, making sort of a little box like that. You put glazed tile in, put the tile in, and they sprayed the glaze on it and run it through the furnace. And I worked there for, I don't know, probably about 6 months. And then they went on strike. And when they went on strike, then it was spring by that time, and I quit. Still kind of always thought I'd go back to the carpenter job, but I didn't. I evidently couldn't find a job, and I went to Spun Steel, which made car pulleys, like where your fan belt runs on. I worked there 2 weeks, and that was when Doris came home, and she said, I talked to Madeline today, and she told me that they were going to hire at the telephone company. And I said, well, I don't know a thing in the world about telephones. But I decided it was outside, and I never wanted to be inside. And I thought that would be a good trick. I would I would go check on it. So I went and talked to them. They hired me. They gave me $48 a week, wasn't it? $1 an hour, I think. Yeah, $48 a week. And I told him, I said, well, I'd like to have the job. And he said, are you sure you can live on $48 a week? And I said, well, I don't know, but I'll find a way. And of course, then you could get supplement from the government if had you been in the service. So I got a supplement pay from the service that helped out. And so I was with the telephone company then for 31 years.
My first job was at the courthouse in Canton, Ohio. I worked there in the real estate department. I only worked from June to December, I think. It was mostly older people. It was fine through the summer. They had summer help. They had young people came in and all, and it was fun. But I had to go down into a basement, like a level, and the people were all older, and I just didn't care for it at all. But so then I went to, one day I went to the E.W. Bliss Company, and they hired me. It was a plant during the war, and where they made airplane parts. And I was in the I had an office in the secretarial position, but I was in the office in the factory. And that was kind of an experience, walking through the factory in the daytime. The guys would all whistle, you know. So I worked there for a little while. Then I got a promotion up to personnel, and I worked in the personnel department. Probably, I don't know how many years altogether, 5 years, 6 years, until I got pregnant for Aunt Darla. And but it was a good place, to do. But I've got one funny story about my boss that I worked for there in the personnel. He would have me call and order him El Producto cigars, and have me call and have his car shampooed, and what was the other thing? Oh, and then we went to a party. I mean, his name was Mr. Green, and everybody called him Mr. Green. But we went to a Christmas party, and Fred says, "Hi, Bill." And I about died. Nobody called him Bill. You know, he was Mr. Green. So, but that was Grandpa.
But the people we didn't address them as a mister. I mean, it's always by their first name.
But not Mr. Green.
Not Mr. Green.
I didn't hear any problem from it, but I about died. So I was at home with the girls for 18 years, raised three little girls, and then when Darla went to college, then I realized that, you know, I needed to go get a job and to help out, support her college expenses. And so I went to the school, and I thought, well, because Denise and Deanna were still in junior high and high school, so I thought, well, that would be a good place to get a job, and I could be home when they were home. So I went to the school, and I was asking for a secretarial position, but they didn't have any positions open in that field, but they did. So I started in the kitchen, and I worked 2 years in the kitchen, and then there was a secretarial position open, and I applied for it, and got it. My boss was a good friend of my brother's, so that might have had some pull. I don't know what, but But anyway, I got it, and I worked as a secretary, secretary in about 13 years, then. Before I joined Grandpa down at the cabin, he was building a cabin for us,
Log home.
a log home for us down in 100 miles south of Canton. So I quit that job and started helping him.
Well, I had gotten an awful lot of information on building log homes. I don't know how many books and so on that I had acquired. And I worked on that for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before we even started building. And then finally they offered an early retirement. So I took the early retirement. I was 54 years old when I retired. I had 31 years with the telephone company. And I was 54 in the spring and became 55 later in August. The farm there, and I started cutting timber, cutting logs. And
Well, you better tell them who planted the trees.
oh, yeah, we, of course, for the log home, we used white pine, red pine trees. And my brothers and I planted those trees when, I guess I was probably about 7, 8 years old when we first started planting them. We plant some every year. And then my oldest brother came home from service, and the government was paying to plant trees, and so he planted several acres of trees, and that's what we cut to build the log home with. And I'd cut those, and then he'd peel all the bark off of them. And,
One by one.
One by one, and shape them up with a sawmill. And after we finished that way, like Doris said, we peeled the bark, stacked them, let them dry, and then started building the log home. And my oldest brother Warren had the construction equipment. He had the dozer, the backhoe, and all that stuff that was his livelihood. And so he did all the excavation for me and dug the basement. And then we built a 2-acre lake, and I built, after I got the log home built, I built two barns after that. Then the Hilton on the hill, the deer had that, where I hunted deer from. So, and that was about the end of my building then.
And then your wife drove you to Florida.
And then my wife drugged me to Florida. She bought a condo here, and we enjoy it very much. Well, I'll tell you about the first one, Darla. When Darla was born, of course, we didn't have any experience, of course, by then, at that time. And I'll never forget when one evening or night, she was crying, and she just, I don't know what the problem was, but she couldn't keep her from crying. Doris was trying to take care of her, and she got wore out. So she asked me to take care of her. So I was sitting there holding her, and she still wouldn't quit. So I picked her up and I went over to the sink, and I'm rocking her under the light. And Doris didn't think that was a very good idea, that I rock her.
But it didn't. She didn't go to sleep.
She finally did go to sleep and didn't have any choice but to close her eyes again.
Raising 3 little girls was a real pleasure. I dressed them alike. A lot. But it was helpful when we were out in a crowd, and at least you knew what they were wearing. They were all wearing the same color outfit and all. And they were good little girls. We enjoyed our girls immensely, and I always
And
wanted,
still do.
and still do. I always wanted a boy, because I thought Grandpa would like a boy, and he said no. He said I'm happy with my girls.
As long as they're healthy.
Yeah. So we enjoyed well, like Grandma said, we didn't know a thing about raising children, but we learned. We had some bumps, hard bumps along the way, but all in all, it was all good. Yeah. After the girls all the Darla and Denise went to school and all, and Deanna was home with me by herself, and by then I was a Girl Scout leader for Denise's troop, and we would Deanna would go with me all the time, and we would while I would lay out my Girl Scout uniform and to put on, and she would and we'd lay out her clothes, and we would race to see who could get dressed the fastest, and so she would run upstairs and get dressed, and then I would be hurrying, but she always beat me, but that was a close time after the girls went to school, and we had a lot of close fun times together. We would get these magazines, school magazines, to do workshops on them, and she wanted to do them right away as soon as they came in the mail, And I didn't always have time to stop right then and do them, but we did them eventually. I remember we had trips, a lot of trips that we would take, and she was always very helpful in helping me get ready, and then as she got older, she was in a beauty pageant from Canton, and she was in the last runner-ups,
She's a beautiful girl.
Yeah, she was. We were so proud of her. Yeah, she was a beautiful girl, and she did a tap dance, and I forget what all she had to, different things that she had to do for this beauty pageant. We took her and had an outfit made for her, and from Mrs. Beans. Mrs. Beans was a special lady at Canton South that did all of the band uniforms, and sewing, and whenever we needed anything special, we would go to Mrs. Beans, and she would sew it for her. So she sewed an outfit for her, and then even on her wedding day, we were having a problem with, there was a tag, something on her dress, and I didn't think it needed to be there, her wedding gown, so I cut it off, and here it was to hold the train up, and I cut it off, and so during, right before the wedding started, I had to go to the audience and get Mrs. Beans and have her come and fix it so that we could put the train up at the wedding, So, yeah, we had a lot of fun and good times together, and we still do. We enjoy her very much. Yeah.
Oh yes. I always enjoyed hiking with her. We had gone on some hikes, just the two of us, and it was always nice to have that one-on-one, and we enjoyed each other.
Fred had a dog named Lady, and he took her to obedience school, and she she learned how to sit and do different things. So Deanna was out on the patio one day, and I heard her out there, and she was trying to
giving her the commands.
Train Lady, and she was saying, "Sit," and Lady wouldn't sit, and do this, and do that, and Lady wouldn't sit. She says, "Have you got a banana in your ear?" So those were some fun things that we had with her when she was young. Yeah.
Well, Deanna was. She was always very attentive to me, I think. She'd make sure that I had something good to eat, and she was a very, very good cook. And she'd just help me whenever I had anything that I needed done. I never asked her to help that she didn't help. And a lot of traveling with the girls. In our very beginning of traveling was always with tent. We had a tent and we would camp. And we went all the way out in Minnesota and up to the Lake of the Woods. And so we did a lot of traveling with that little blue trailer. And we had a little blue trailer that I had built up and, to haul the camping equipment in. And we did a lot of traveling and a lot of camping. And everyone had their job that they had to do. So they get ready to set up the tent, and everyone had a chore. And it didn't take us long to put the tent up then. But, so, and everyone enjoyed camping, so it made it easy.
But then we got a
Hard trailer.
hard top trailer, and
Pulled it all the way to California and back, and that was the biggest mistake I ever made. Well, one of them in my life. I think it was what ended up being about. With the route we took, I forget how many miles it was, but
over 8,000 miles.
Because we didn't just go straight out and straight back. But we were gone 5 weeks, and every day, we never had a day that we didn't drive. Until the last week, I think it was, we came back to Minnesota, and I had an Army buddy that lived in Minnesota, Beaver Creek, and we stopped there, and we had become friends with some of his friends there, a couple of families, and so we spent several days there with them on our way back home, and we had an enjoyable time with them. So I guess that was about the end of our travel with.
Well, then we went to Nova. Then
we pulled it to Nova Scotia, but that was not a bad trip because we were more relaxed time, more time, and it was a relaxed trip, and so. But Nova Scotia was a very nice trip. When we went to Australia, we flew over there, and luggage-wise, of course, we were flying standby, so you had to keep everything you had with you when you traveled, you know. And we had one suitcase, and I had a backpack, and that's the only clothes that we took. Now we had to wash clothes every week, or every 3 or 4 days, really. We were there 2 weeks, and we traveled quite a lot, went over and climbed up on Ayers Rock, and I don't know what other.
You did. I tried it. I started. I thought I could do it, but
it was too steep.
It was too steep. I could not do it. I had to wait till he came out.
And then did we come back to Hawaii at that time? We stopped?
Yeah, Hawaii on the way home.
On the way back, we came back to the Big Island of Hawaii and spent a week there on the Big Island before we came home.
We're thankful for
all the
traveling that we've been able to do, and basically that's because Denise used to work for the airlines, and she provided some help help for us.
And the good Lord watched over us and kept us safe as we traveled.
That's for sure.
Each other.
Each other?
Each other.
That sounds good. Yeah, each other.
And the good times we had together, our families.
The good life we've had.
With their families.
And with our families. It's been good. It's not always been easy, but we've had a good life. Let's see, it'll be on February 19th. It'll be what, 68 years that we have been together. That the good Lord has allowed us to be together, and we're so thankful for that.
Oh, I can't kiss her.
He hasn't kissed me in 60 years.
Yeah, last time I kissed her was 64 years ago.
What a smackaroo. Waved goodbye to the camera, you know.
What a